What if everything you were taught about success, about more, better, faster, was quietly undoing your peace? You wake up, your phone lights up before your eyes adjust to the daylight. Notifications, alerts, headlines. You sip your coffee while checking emails, texts, the relentless scroll of social media. The world tells you to chase, to add, to accumulate. More status, more followers, more productivity, more stuff. But deep down, something aches. A feeling that your soul is carrying too much weight, like a room so full of furniture that you can no longer walk freely. You begin to wonder, what if freedom lies not in addition, but in subtraction? Letting go. Two small words that sound like surrender, but quietly hold a kind of invisible power. A different kind of wealth. Not the kind that glitters or trends, but the wealth of a quiet mind, of inner spaciousness, of owning your time and energy. Minimalism is often misunderstood as aesthetic. Clean white walls, tiny homes, or counting your belongings. But its true essence is philosophical. It is not about having less just for the sake of it. It is about making space for what matters. It is about learning the art of releasing. Clutter, yes, but also expectations, old narratives, relationships that no longer nourish, identities that no longer fit. This idea is not new. In fact, it is ancient. From the ascetics of India to the Stoics of Rome, from Zen monks in Japan to the desert mystics of early Christianity, human beings have always wrestled with the same core truth, that accumulation can become a prison, and that letting go is not a loss, it is liberation. We live in a culture that equates letting go with failure. Walking away means weakness. Owning less means lacking. But what if that is the greatest lie of all? This is not just about decluttering your closet. This is about decluttering your soul. It is about recognizing that your attention is your true currency, and your peace is your most valuable asset. It is about understanding that some of the richest lives are built not on what they possess, but on what they no longer need. In this exploration, we will travel through time, from ancient philosophies to modern psychology. We will untangle the subtle chains that bind us to things, people, identities, and expectations. And we will ask, what does it truly mean to live simply? Not as a trend, but as a radical act of reclaiming your life. So take a breath, let go of distraction, and come with me. We are about to explore the profound richness that lies on the other side of release. Letting go is not a modern epiphany sparked by social media detoxes or minimalist YouTubers. It is an ancient practice embedded in the bones of every civilization that has tried to answer the same question. What does it mean to live well? To begin understanding this, we must first define what letting go truly is. Letting go is not the absence of care. It is not indifference, nor is it apathy. It is the conscious, often difficult act of releasing what no longer serves your deeper life. Sometimes it is physical, relinquishing possessions or stepping away from roles. But more often it is internal, letting go of expectations, of control, of identities forged in survival but no longer necessary, of pain dressed as pride. It is a quiet revolution of the self. Throughout history, this idea has taken many forms. In ancient India, the principle of non-attachment, or vairagya, was considered essential for liberation. The yogic sages taught that suffering arises from clinging. We grasp at outcomes, identities, and possessions, thinking they will complete us. But they bind us. In the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna is told by Krishna that true wisdom lies in acting without attachment to results. Do your duty, but surrender the fruits. The Buddha took this further. His entire path to enlightenment began with a single act of letting go. A prince who walked away from his palace, from luxury, from power. Not because those things were evil, but because he saw they could not satisfy the deepest human yearning. The path of Buddhism is not about denial. It is about seeing clearly that clinging leads to suffering, that impermanence is the nature of all things, and that peace comes from release, not grasping. Across the globe, in ancient Greece, the Stoics echoed a similar tune. Epictetus, once a slave, taught that true freedom comes not from changing the world, but from mastering your response to it. Letting go, for the Stoics, was a form of inner sovereignty. Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor, wrote quietly to himself in his journal, not as a king, but as a student of impermanence. He reminded himself daily that everything passes, that control is an illusion, and that serenity comes from surrender. In the deserts of the Middle East, the Sufi mystics practiced a kind of divine minimalism. They let go not only of worldly attachments, but even of the self. The ego was seen as the final veil between the seeker and the divine. Rumi, beloved across cultures, spoke of letting go like falling into the arms of love. Try to learn to let what is simply be. For him, detachment was not cold. It was ecstatic. Even Christianity, though often portrayed through its institutional weight, has deep veins of minimalism running through it. The early desert fathers and mothers, ascetics who left society behind, sought solitude not as escape, but as confrontation. To meet the self fully, to let go of ego, comfort, pride. They believed simplicity cleared the space where the divine could dwell. Fast forward to the East once more, and we find Zen Buddhism, a tradition built almost entirely on the practice of letting go. The Zen monk lives simply not to impress, but to be free from distractions. Their silence, their stillness, is a rebellion against the noise of the world. In the Zen tradition, the mind is like a muddy river. The more we try to hold it still, the more it stirs. But if we release, it settles. These traditions span continents, languages, and epochs, but they speak the same language of surrender. So how did we get here? Into a world where letting go feels like failure. How did we move from spiritual simplicity to chronic accumulation? The Industrial Revolution changed more than our machines. It changed our relationship to time, to work, to self-worth. Suddenly, productivity became moral. Owning became status. And the world told us that to be someone, we must be seen having everything. Capitalism deepened this shift. Not inherently evil, but blind. It does not care for meaning, only for growth. And so it turned desire into fuel. A cycle of endless wanting. In such a world, letting go becomes a threat. If you are not constantly acquiring, are you even participating? Technology accelerated this even further. Our digital lives overflow with choices. Infinite scroll, algorithmic temptation, comparison masquerading as inspiration. We now carry our clutter in our pockets and in our minds. Notifications, expectations, personas. The weight is invisible, but we feel it. A kind of spiritual claustrophobia. And yet, something ancient still stirs beneath all of this. The minimalist movement, though often criticized as privileged or aestheticized, is in some sense a reawakening. A return to the old questions. What do I actually need? Who am I without my things, my status, my titles? What is enough? We see echoes of this in art, literature, and even in resistance movements. The Transcendentalists, like Thoreau, walked into the woods not to escape, but to confront what was real. The Quakers wore plain clothes not out of disdain, but to align life with principle. Gandhi spun his own cloth as a protest against imperial excess and as a spiritual act of simplification. Across time, people have always returned to the same truth when the noise grows too loud, that life becomes richer when it becomes simpler, that to let go is to remember what matters. Today, the language may be different. We talk about digital detoxes, slow living, boundary setting, but the soul behind it is the same. The longing for depth over breadth, for peace over performance, for stillness in a world of speed. And so we begin to see that letting go is not giving up. It is returning. It is remembering. It is an act of courage, not of loss. It is not about becoming someone else. It is about uncovering the self that was buried beneath the rubble of trying. Letting go is a spiritual art, but it is also deeply psychological. At its core, letting go challenges one of the most fundamental mechanisms in the human mind: attachment. From the moment we are born, we cling. First to our caregivers, then to objects, then to identities and ideals. This clinging is not weakness, it is how we survive. But as we grow, many of these attachments, once protective, become cages we no longer notice. Psychologically, this is often explained through attachment theory. Developed by John Bowlby in the 20th century, it describes how our earliest relationships shape the way we connect with others and the world. A secure attachment teaches us that we can trust, release, and return. But insecure attachment breeds anxiety, control, fear of abandonment. We learn, often unconsciously, that to be safe is to hold on, even to pain, even to people or roles that wound us. This is why letting go can feel terrifying. It is not simply the act of removing something from our life. It is the breaking of an emotional contract, often one we did not realize we signed. It is grieving what we thought we needed to survive. Modern psychology confirms what ancient wisdom already knew. Our identities are sticky. They form from patterns, beliefs, emotional memories. The ego, in psychological terms, is not just vanity. It is our sense of self, our story. And that story is built on the things we have gathered, not only possessions, but roles: parent, achiever, fixer, victim, helper, outsider. Carl Jung called this the persona, the mask we wear to meet the world. It is necessary. But when we believe the mask is our face, we become lost in it. Letting go, then, is not about erasing identity. It is about separating who we are from who we had to be. In therapy, this process is often called shadow work. It involves meeting the parts of ourselves we deny or hide. It means asking, why am I holding on? What does this attachment protect me from seeing? Sometimes it is not the thing we fear losing, but the truth it reveals in its absence. For example, we may cling to a career not because we love it, but because we fear the silence that might arise without it. We may stay in a toxic relationship not out of love, but out of the dread of loneliness, because loneliness reflects the wounds we've buried. Letting go threatens to unearth them. This is where trauma enters the picture. Many of us were taught, not through words but through experience, that letting go was dangerous. That expressing needs, releasing control, or trusting others led to pain. So we developed strategies: mental hoarding, emotional suppression, obsessive planning. We convinced ourselves that holding on was safer than being free. But what is safety if it costs you your aliveness? The practice of letting go is, paradoxically, a practice of reclaiming control. Not over others or the world, but over your own mind, over your nervous system, over your response. In cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, one of the most effective psychological tools today, patients learn to recognize and release thought patterns that no longer serve them. You learn to ask, is this belief true? Is it helpful? What would happen if I released it? It is the same principle echoed by Stoic thinkers like Epictetus. The only thing we control is our response. Everything else is a guest in the house of our life. We can welcome, witness, and when the time comes, release. There is also a biological layer to this. The brain, especially the amygdala, is wired to detect threats. When we let go of something familiar, even if it causes pain, the brain sometimes perceives it as danger. That is why people often say they feel addicted to their own suffering. The suffering is predictable, and the brain prefers the predictable to the unknown. Letting go is stepping into that unknown, and rewiring the fear associated with it. This is where mindfulness becomes a crucial tool. Mindfulness, in both its secular and spiritual forms, is the act of observing thoughts and feelings without judgment. It teaches us to watch a desire or fear rise and fall without reacting. Over time, this practice builds emotional regulation, or what psychologists call affect tolerance, the ability to sit with discomfort without clinging to reaction. Imagine a wave. Most people either fight the wave or get swept under it. Mindfulness teaches you to float, to know that all things pass. Jung, again, offers a powerful metaphor here. He spoke of the process of individuation, the becoming of a whole self as the integration of opposites. Letting go is part of this dance. We must let go of the false self in order to meet the full self. We must release certainty to find wisdom. We must shed control to uncover trust. Even in neuroscience, we now know that neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to change, is enhanced when we practice letting go. When we stop rehearsing old fears, when we stop clinging to the same emotional loops, we create new pathways. Space opens. Creativity returns. A person who has let go is not blank. They are fertile. Socially, the pressure to hold on is enormous. We live in a performance culture. Online, our identities are curated like storefronts. To release a belief or a label or a lifestyle feels like social death. But what if the real death is in the constant pretending? Social media intensifies this. Comparison becomes identity. We do not just want to be happy, we want to appear happy. We cling not to joy, but to the image of joy. This disconnect creates a spiritual dissonance, a life that looks full but feels hollow. Letting go, then, is not just psychological. It is cultural rebellion. It is saying, I will no longer define my worth by output. I will no longer measure success by accumulation. I will no longer chase connection that demands I betray myself. It is a quiet resistance against the myth of scarcity, the idea that we must hoard love, attention, validation, as if there is not enough to go around. In truth, it is not love or peace that is scarce. It is our willingness to receive them without control. Across traditions, the same metaphors return: the empty cup, the open hand, the breath let out. In every one of them, the message is the same. To hold everything is to be crushed. To let go is to be held by something greater. When we surrender the illusions, the roles, the expectations, we do not disappear. We become. When we fail to let go, when we cling to what is already gone or to what was never truly ours, the consequences ripple through our lives in quiet but powerful ways. We carry the weight of old stories like stones in our pockets, and most of us do not realize how heavy they are until we finally put them down. One of the first casualties of not letting go is our sense of self. We begin to confuse who we are with what we have collected: possessions, relationships, habits, titles, even pain. The self becomes a museum of survival mechanisms, a carefully arranged gallery of what helped us get here, but which now prevents us from moving forward. People say they feel stuck, drained, lost, but often it is not because something is missing. It is because too much is being held on to. A job that once offered structure becomes a cage of repetition. A relationship that once held joy becomes a script we keep acting out long after the characters have changed. A belief that once gave us comfort becomes a prison we can no longer see the bars of. This emotional inertia is common. Psychologists call it cognitive fusion, when we become entangled with our thoughts and feelings, believing them to be absolute truth. I am unlovable. I cannot survive without this. I failed, so I must always be a failure. We do not just think these thoughts, we become them. And in this fusion we begin to limit ourselves. We say no to opportunities because we are still stuck in the fears of the past. We say yes to things that drain us because we cannot imagine being someone who walks away. We settle, not because the world demands it, but because we have made our peace with staying small. There are also relational costs. When we do not let go of past betrayals, we carry suspicion into new love. When we do not let go of childhood wounds, we project them onto our partners, our friends, even our children. We mistake old ghosts for present threats. Letting go is not forgetting. It is the opposite. It is remembering with clarity, without being ruled by it. It is allowing the past to inform us, but not imprison us. In friendships, clinging can become a performance. We hold on to connections that no longer feel alive, simply because they are familiar. We shrink ourselves to fit the roles we once played. We fear change because it might expose who has grown and who has not. But pretending is not loyalty. It is quiet grief. In families, letting go can be even harder. We internalize ideas of duty, of tradition, of sacrifice. We carry generations of unspoken burdens. But the truth is, healing sometimes requires letting go of inherited pain, of expectations you never agreed to, of roles that harm you. This does not mean abandoning people. It means refusing to abandon yourself. In our careers, the inability to let go can disguise itself as ambition. We push harder, reach higher, not out of passion, but out of fear. Fear of being nothing without the title. Fear of stillness. Fear of not being enough if we are not constantly proving it. We glamorize burnout. We treat exhaustion as a badge of honor. But underneath it all, many are just terrified of pausing, because to pause might reveal the emptiness we have been working so hard to outrun. The consequences are physical too. Chronic stress, anxiety, insomnia. The body carries what the mind refuses to release. Muscles tighten around unspoken grief. The nervous system braces for threats that no longer exist. We become hypervigilant, not because the world is dangerous, but because our minds have not updated their map of safety. In trauma work, there is a phrase, "The body keeps the score." What we do not let go of mentally, we store somatically. This is why some people cry during a massage, or feel exhausted after meditating. The body is trying to let go, even when the mind resists. The spiritual consequences are perhaps the most subtle, but also the most profound. When we do not let go, we lose presence. We live in mental time machines, replaying the past or worrying about the future. We miss the softness of now. We forget how to be where we are. Life becomes a blur of reaction rather than a dance of intention. And in this blur, we lose meaning. Because meaning does not arise from control. It arises from attention, from showing up fully without dragging every past moment into the current one. The soul does not need more. It needs less noise. Historically, these consequences are not new. In ancient mythology, the image of a hero burdened by refusal to let go is a recurring theme. Think of Sisyphus, condemned to push the same boulder uphill for eternity. What is that, if not the perfect metaphor for clinging to what no longer serves? Every day, he starts again, unable to release the idea that this time will be different, that he can conquer what is meant to be let go. In the Hindu epic Mahabharata, there's a poignant story of a king named Yudhishthira. As he ascends toward heaven, he is asked to let go of all his companions, his brothers, his beloved dog, his past. Each time, he resists. He pleads, but in the end, he must walk alone. The message is clear. Even in triumph, the path to liberation requires letting go. In Buddhism, the image of the hungry ghost is a haunting one. These beings are depicted with huge, empty stomachs and tiny mouths, forever starving, never satisfied. They represent what happens when desire controls us, when we are unable to release craving, attachment, ego. They are not punished by gods. They are punished by their own clinging. Even in modern literature, we see this theme again and again. Characters trapped in cycles of revenge, of grief, of ambition, until they learn to surrender, or perish from refusing to. The consequences are not always dramatic. Often they are quiet, a dull ache, a life that looks fine but feels heavy, a sense that something is missing, even when everything appears to be in place. That is the cost of not letting go. Not drama, not ruin, but a slow forgetting of who you really are. And yet, there is always a way back. Letting go is not a one-time act. It is a practice. Like breathing. You do not inhale once and say you are done. You do not forgive once and never feel hurt again. You do not declutter your home or your heart and expect it to remain empty forever. You return. You release. Again and again. Each time a little lighter. Each time a little closer to the truth beneath the noise. Each time reclaiming a piece of your selfhood from the debris of pretending. Letting go is not the end of care. It is the beginning of clarity. So, how do we begin to let go? Not as a concept, but as a lived reality. Because knowing that we hold on too tightly is not the same as knowing how to release. Most people want to let go. They just do not know where to put their hands. This is not a single decision. It is a collection of small acts, habits, and inner postures that, over time, create a life of spaciousness. True simplicity is not about living with nothing. It is about not being owned by anything. 1. Create inner distance through observation. Letting go begins with awareness. Not judgment, not suppression, just the simple act of noticing. What are you clinging to right now? A title? An image of who you're supposed to be? An apology you never got? A plan that didn't unfold? You can begin here. Sit for 10 minutes. Watch what arises in your mind. Not to fix it, not to escape it, just to meet it. In that meeting, you are no longer fused with it. You are the witness, not the wound. This practice mirrors mindfulness meditation, but it also echoes the ancient Sufi principle of muraqabah, vigilant self-awareness in the presence of the divine. You watch yourself not to criticize, but to return to your essence. 2. Let the body speak. Much of our clinging lives in the body. So, while talk therapy or introspection can be helpful, they must be paired with embodiment. Try practices like somatic breathwork, to loosen tension that thought cannot reach. Gentle movement, like Tai Chi or Yin Yoga, to tell the nervous system it's safe to release. Body scans, where you simply notice sensations, without trying to change them. These are not esoteric luxuries. They are language. The body needs to speak its own truth before it can let go of stored pain. 3. Journal without armor. Journaling is often recommended, but not all journaling is equal. To truly begin letting go through writing, try this simple prompt. What am I afraid will happen if I release this? Go deep. Write the fear without editing. Then ask, who taught me that? This is not about blaming. It is about tracing the thread of attachment to its root. Often, what you find is a very young version of yourself, someone who once needed to cling, but you are not them anymore. You can thank them, and you can let them rest. This is where internal family systems, IFS therapy, offers wisdom. It teaches us to meet those inner parts with compassion. You do not get rid of your fears. You lead them. You help them feel safe enough to loosen their grip. 4. Practice non-attachment, not detachment. There's a difference. Detachment says, I don't care. Non-attachment says, I care deeply, but I am not owned by this. This is the Buddhist middle way. To be present, to love, to strive, to weep, and still to know that nothing is permanent. Nothing is guaranteed. This allows you to engage with life fully, without trying to possess it. Try this as a daily mindset. I give my best, and I release the rest. Say it before a conversation, a project, even a prayer. Over time, this becomes muscle memory. 5. Declutter as a ritual, not a task. Minimalism is often sold as an aesthetic. Clean shelves, muted tones, Scandinavian furniture. But that misses the point. True minimalist philosophy is about asking, what in my life is useful, meaningful, or beautiful, and what is just noise? This can apply to physical things but also mental clutter, emotional baggage, obligations that no longer serve your soul. Try a monthly ritual of letting go. Choose one physical item, one belief, one commitment. Write them down, thank them, release them. It could be as small as an old hoodie or as large as an identity. Over time, you realize nothing you truly need ever leaves. Only what no longer fits does. Embrace grief as a companion. We often resist letting go because we are afraid of the sadness that follows. But grief is not your enemy. It is your passage. To feel it is to honor what once mattered. To grieve is to allow something to die with dignity, so something else might be born. In many traditions, grief is sacred. The Japanese concept of mono no aware captures this. The bittersweet awareness of impermanence. That things are beautiful because they end. Letting go without grief is not letting go. It is avoidance. Let yourself feel the ache. It means you lived fully. 7. Reclaim your power through boundaries. Sometimes what needs to be released is not an object or thought, but an enmeshment. Letting go often requires boundaries. Saying no. Saying not now. Saying, I love you and I choose myself too. This is not rejection. It is realignment. Start by noticing where resentment lives. Resentment is often a boundary unspoken. Learn to name your limits. You are not responsible for others' reactions, only for your own clarity. This is how you return power to your own hands. 8. Create more than you consume. Clinging is often a symptom of consumption. We absorb so much, content, opinions, comparisons, that our inner voice becomes drowned out. Letting go is easier when we begin to create. Write, paint, cook, build, express, not for perfection, not for approval, but because creation is the opposite of clinging. It says, I trust the flow. I add something new rather than clutch what already exists. 9. Lean into rituals of renewal. Letting go is not just about endings. It's about making space for beginnings. Across cultures, rituals of release mark important transitions. Funerals, bonfires, cleansings, symbolic haircuts, farewell songs. In the modern world, we've lost much of this, so bring it back. Make your own rituals. Burn a letter you'll never send. Wash your hands as a symbolic reset. Light a candle and speak your release aloud. The psyche responds to symbolism. When the act of letting go is embodied, it becomes real. 10. Surrender, not collapse. Finally, the deepest form of letting go is surrender, not passive resignation, but active trust. To surrender is to say, I do not control it all, and I do not need to. This does not mean you give up your dreams. It means you hold them lightly. You show up fully and let life meet you where it will. This is echoed in Stoic wisdom, in Taoist flow, in Christian mysticism, in the poetry of Rumi. The idea that freedom is not in having more, but in needing less. As Rumi once wrote, try not to resist the changes that come your way. Instead, let life live through you. Letting go is true wealth, not because it makes you poorer, but because it reveals what was never yours to begin with. To let go is not only to simplify, it is to create space for the unknown. In a world addicted to control, uncertainty is terrifying, but creativity, emotional maturity, and even spiritual growth live precisely in the places we cannot control. The sculptor knows. To bring forth the form, you must remove what does not belong. The writer knows. A good sentence is often born from deleting a dozen others. The gardener knows. Nothing will grow in soil that has not first been cleared. Letting go in this way is not the end of your story. It is the unmaking that allows the next chapter to emerge. Let us explore how this principle plays out across 3 essential domains of a meaningful life: creativity, emotional growth, and spiritual depth. 1. Letting go as the foundation of creative flow. Many people speak of creative block as if inspiration is something you wait for. But creativity is not summoned by force. It emerges when we get out of our own way. And that begins with letting go. Letting go of the fear of judgment. Letting go of the need to be good. Letting go of the idea that your work must be productive to be valuable. The psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi coined the term flow state to describe the timeless, selfless immersion that happens when a person is fully engaged in a creative act. But here is what's often forgotten. Flow only emerges when the ego softens. You cannot be in flow and in control at the same time. This is why the artist loosens their hand, why the dancer lets the music move through their body, why the poet stops thinking and starts listening. To create is to surrender, to trust that something deeper than your thinking mind knows the way. In Zen philosophy, this is known as Wu Wei, the art of non-forcing, the idea that the best action is often no action at all, that true mastery lies in the space between effort and ease. So the next time you sit down to create anything, be it a meal or a masterpiece, ask yourself, what expectations can I release right now? What would happen if I let myself be surprised? Often, what emerges in that loosened space is not just better work. It is more authentic work. Work that breathes. 2. Letting go as the sign of emotional maturity. To be emotionally mature is not to feel less. It is to hold emotion without being hijacked by it. This means we must learn the delicate skill of emotional release. So many of us were never taught how to let an emotion rise and pass. Instead, we suppress it, avoid it, or let it control us. We think strength is found in holding it together. But true strength is softness without collapse. It is crying when you need to, without apology. It is feeling grief without self-pity. It is letting anger burn, but not burn you down. In modern psychology, the idea of emotional regulation is often misunderstood. It does not mean controlling your feelings. It means creating a safe inner container for them to move through you. Think of emotion like a wave. The wave rises, peaks, and falls if we do not resist it. But when we suppress emotion, it doesn't disappear. It sinks, it stagnates. It turns into chronic tension, fatigue, depression. Letting go here means giving the wave permission. You can practice this. When sadness comes, name it. Let it speak. When envy arises, do not shame it. Let it teach you what you long for. When joy visits, don't rush to photograph it. Let it fill you. This is how emotional maturity is born. Not through mastery, but through relationship. You become someone who can hold many truths at once, and you realize emotions are not enemies. They are messengers. You do not need to control them. You only need to listen, and then let go. 3. Letting go as a path to spiritual evolution. Perhaps the deepest level of letting go is spiritual. Because the truth is, everything we think we are, our names, roles, stories, even bodies, will eventually be surrendered. Spiritual traditions across time have recognized this. In Christianity, the idea of dying to the self is not about martyrdom. It is about shedding the false ego so the deeper soul can awaken. In Buddhism, non-attachment is not indifference. It is clarity, the ability to love without clinging, to act without grasping for outcomes. In Sufism, the mystic says, "I died before I died, and thus I lived." These are not metaphors, they are maps. The ego believes, "I must possess to be safe." The soul knows, "I must release to be free." So the spiritual path is not a ladder you climb. It is a series of surrenders. Each time you let go of a false identity, a limiting belief, a need for control, you move closer to truth. This is not easy. It is terrifying to let go of who you think you are. It is unsettling to trust a mystery you cannot see. But this is the paradox of awakening. You do not find yourself by accumulating more. You find yourself by shedding what you are not. Sometimes the most powerful prayer is a single line. I do not know, but I am willing. Willing to soften. Willing to receive. Willing to walk forward, even if you cannot yet see the ground beneath your feet. And then something beautiful happens. You begin to notice a quiet intelligence beneath your striving. You begin to trust the seasons of your life. You begin to feel held, not by things, but by being. This is not about religion. It is about presence. It is about remembering that you are not separate from life. You are life. And life, when unresisted, flows. A final reflection. Letting go is not about giving up on dreams, passion, or people. It is about letting go of the illusion that you must control it all for it to be good. When you release that need, when you allow space, silence, softness, you do not become empty. You become available to love more purely, to create more honestly, to live more fully. So perhaps the question is not, what should I hold on to? But rather, what in me is ready to be released? Not to abandon life, but to enter it more deeply. This, too, is wealth, the kind that cannot be stolen, the kind that only grows as you give it away. Let go, and let yourself become. If you could carry only one thing with you through life, what would it be? Would it be the titles you earned, the plans you made, the house you bought, or perhaps the story you tell yourself about who you are? The irony is this: the more we try to carry, the less we can actually hold. And the more we let go, the more we realize that life was never asking us to own anything, but to experience everything, deeply and with presence. Letting go is not a subtraction. It is a return. We live in a world where gain is glorified and release is mistaken for failure. But release is not defeat. It is alignment. Like a tree dropping its leaves, letting go is an intelligent response to the seasons of life. There is no shame in it. There is only wisdom. Every moment of peace you have ever felt came not from clinging, but from surrender, from loosening your grip, from allowing life to move through you, not be bent to your will. We often think letting go is about loss, but in truth, it is about clarity. It is about removing the excess until only what truly matters remains. And what remains? Not the clutter of opinions or the weight of what-ifs, not the hollow metrics of achievement or the polished armor of control. What remains is presence, stillness, spaciousness, and with it, the surprising rediscovery of joy. Not the dopamine buzz of consumption, but the quiet, nourishing joy of simply being here, of tasting your tea, of breathing deeply, of hearing your child's laughter without worrying about tomorrow, of walking barefoot, feeling earth meet skin. This is true wealth, the wealth of needing less, the wealth of having enough, the wealth of knowing that your worth does not live in what you accumulate, but in how freely you live, how deeply you love, and how fully you show up for this one life. Across time, people have known this. The mystics, the sages, the poets and wanderers. The Stoics taught us that happiness lies in our relationship to desire. The Buddhists told us that clinging is the root of suffering. The Christian desert fathers sought stillness and silence. The Sufis danced not to acquire, but to dissolve. Even in our modern chaos, the whisper remains. Let go. Let go of the story. Let go of the outcome. Let go of the idea that you are not already whole. And then watch what grows. This is not about escaping the world. It is about engaging it without being imprisoned by it. You still work, still love, still build and break and try again. But you no longer mistake the scenery for the self. Letting go is not a final act. It is a daily rhythm. Each morning you choose, will I carry this again today? And each night you ask, what can I place down gently so I can rest? This is the quiet revolution of simple living. You begin to see that you are not behind. You are not broken. You are just buried under expectations that were never yours. When you clear the noise, what is left is not emptiness. It is essence. Letting go is not about less life. It is about more life, uncluttered, more presence, more peace, more truth. And so, as we close this reflection, let me offer a simple image. You are standing at the edge of a vast lake. In your hands, you hold stones, each one labeled with the names of your attachments. Some are old, some are heavy, some you've forgotten how they even got there. You take a breath, and one by one, you drop them. The surface ripples, the water receives, and your hands are finally free, and that, quietly, simply, and beautifully, is what true wealth feels like. If something stirred in you while listening to this, if a part of you softened, or sighed, or felt seen, then this is your place. Because this space, this channel, is not about quick tips or superficial fixes. It is for those of us who are ready to walk a little slower, think a little deeper, and live a little freer. Here we ask the quiet questions. What am I really holding on to? Who would I be if I let it go? And how can I live a life that feels less like a performance and more like a home? We dive into history not just to admire the past, but to remember what it can teach us about being fully human today. We explore psychology not to diagnose, but to understand. And we look inward not to escape the world, but to return to it more awake. If you're someone who believes that meaning matters more than status, if you're tired of noise and hungry for depth, if you sense that there is a different kind of power, the quiet kind, rooted in self-awareness, truth, and simplicity, then you belong here. Because we are not just consuming content. We are reclaiming our time. We are reclaiming our values. We are reclaiming ourselves. Subscribe if you want more than just another video in your feed. Subscribe if you want thoughtful explorations that blend ancient wisdom, modern psychology, and practical tools for real growth. We're not chasing perfection. We're walking together, step by step, toward something more grounded, more honest, and more free. And who knows? Maybe in the act of letting go, we'll discover what we were always meant to hold. So stay with us, reflect with us, grow with us, because the journey is long, but we do not have to walk it alone.